Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insights through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Welcome to another episode of the Core Women Podcast. Today, I will be talking to Nicolette Sowa, where we dive into her inspiring journey of resilience and reinvention. After being laid off from a company she was with for 16 years, Nicolette pivoted to a completely new industry, landing her dream job in just 2 years, and then starting her own business, which is NextLevel Strategy, where she helps entrepreneurs and executives realize their potential through holistic coaching and strategic growth. We'll explore how professionals can find focus, avoid burnout, and thrive in both their business and personal lives, as well as her exciting new Masterclass, Find Your Focus. Let's get ready to jump right into this conversation and welcome Nicolette.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm excited to have you here as well. But before we jump into your professional aspects of your life, could you describe your life journey in one word to this point and why?
Sure. I would say unconventional. I've had a very winding, interesting, as you've alluded to a little bit, career and life journey. So there are some other things in there as well, such as traveling for a year with my family, moving to the Bay Area on a whim to take a new job in a new industry with my family, taking 11 years to finish my bachelor's degree. So just some different things that I've done and different paths that I've taken that I think are not conventional. I think jumping into that world of entrepreneurship, I'm seeing that more and more. And I feel like I found my people who are also on unconventional paths. But for the most part, I think my journey is, when I talk to friends or colleagues, it's different. It's very different. It's not your usual, went to school, got the career and moved up the ladder and got your expertise and maybe decided to start a company. Is very winding.
Yeah, well, thank you for that word. I like that word, unconventional. So, what was your initial reaction when you were laid off after working for a company for 16 years? How did you begin to plan your next step? What did that feel like? Tell us more.
Yeah, my first reaction, honestly, was I realized it was a bad relationship. And I told people almost immediately, it felt like I had a boyfriend that I needed to break up with. And one of us had to do it, right? And he broke up with me. That's what happened. But I felt very relieved. I knew that I was burning out, that I was spinning my wheels, didn't really have a goal. And this is, working toward what I do now. I didn't really have a goal. I didn't know where I was going. I knew I wanted to have more responsibility. I knew I wanted to kind of move up the ladder, if you will, in the corporate world, but I didn't really have a clear vision for my life and my goals. At first, it was relief. And then it was, okay, what do I do with this time that I have? I'm blessed with this time. I have this time to figure out who I am, what I do want to do with my life. And in that time, I had already started a hobby investigating clean energy, learning more about clean energy. My bachelor's is actually in environmental studies. And so even though I was in healthcare IT, I was very much interested in that space already. And I decided to go to my dream school, Vermont Law School, and get a master's degree. In that space too, I also worked on myself. I had time to volunteer. I had time to really just focus on what does personal development look like for me. So I did those things and doing those things and going back to school at 35, figured out my big goal, my big dreams. And that set me up for success in the next phase of my career in my new industry. So there's a lot of focus on my part of slowing down and listening and envisioning, right? Envisioning what could be for myself.
Right. How did transitioning to a new industry as well as starting your own business, what was your approach to work and leadership and developing something very unique that you never had done before? Tell me more about that and what that felt like and those first steps for you.
Yeah. So, I will say I'm going through it again, right? Or a couple times now in career changes that I've had since I went into the energy industry. And that is really just slowing down, especially when you start a new role, when you start a new endeavor, slowing down and really paying attention to the direction that you want to go. Because when you don't have that big dream, the goals that you have are not necessarily going to get you there. And working harder just to work harder without that intention, it's like walking through sand toward your goals, right? You're slow. It's hard to walk in a straight line. It's not easy and it's drudgery and you can't even see where you're going sometimes, as opposed to a flat green meadow is a nice little hike, right? When you see that big dream ahead of you, just walking towards those goals to get there is that much easier. I always say you can't have a roadmap if you don't know where you're going. Even if that changes over time for you, you really have to have a vision in your mind. You can adapt, you can change direction if you need to, but have that so that you're walking intentionally towards those things that matter. So that's really what I did when I changed careers, is took that time to understand my big dream, but also how the goals that I was trying to accomplish in the job I was in related to that for me.
I love that.
I mean, it takes a lot of pressure off actually when you have that big dream, because your goals maybe seem really big and scary, daunting when you're just looking at the goal. They don't seem so big when you're looking at the big dream because you're going to have so many goals that you need to accomplish. This is just one of them. You're going to do so many more things to get to your big dream. It kind of makes them seem not as important in a great way, in a way that makes it seem like, yes, I can do that. It's not too much. It's not too scary.
Yeah. Nicolette, it's funny that you say this because sometimes I see and hear the reverse. Stop looking at the big goal and look at the small steps, because then it doesn't seem so overwhelming. And this was a great segue into my next question. What advice would you give to somebody who is experiencing fear and uncertainty during a career transition or developing a business?
You definitely can get overwhelmed. And I talk about this in my masterclass as well. You can get overwhelmed with the big picture for sure. And, sometimes it feels like that's so far away. How am I ever going to get there? And the tip I have is let go of the how. Just focus on the goals in front of you. We're going to focus on the goals in front of us because we have a long way to go. We have a lot of stuff to do, and that's okay. We don't want to feel overwhelmed by that. We want to feel inspired by that. When you have a big dream, it keeps you inspired. And it's also going to continue to light that way for you when things get hard. You have to really continue to think about what you want your life to look like. And for me, visioning has helped. I use an app. There are lots of apps out there. I have ADHD, so sitting with myself and trying to do that for 10 minutes probably isn't going to happen. So having a guided voice is super important for me. But going through and just really picturing and feeling and living in your mind the life that you want to create for yourself, and then taking the how out of it. Put one step in front of the other, take those steps, and you'll get there. You'll get there much faster than you think. And that's been my experience in the career that I had going into energy. I actually took a step back. I was in management before I got laid off, and took a step back and became a program manager. My dream that I thought was 10 years away was being a VP, and I got offered that job in 2 years. And I also got articles, I got workshops that I conducted for the whole state of California, all these opportunities because I just did one thing at a time. But I also realized to get to my big dream, I have to do some things that maybe I would have said, oh, I can wait, that can wait, this is scary, I don't want to do this, when it shows up for me, instead of pursuing it a little bit, right? Like writing an article. Putting yourself out there is scary, but it's not as scary when you think, oh, my big dream is to live like that. This is the life that I want to create, right? And whatever that looks like for you, going back and reverse engineering that and saying, okay, I can do these small steps.
Can you share a moment where you felt you were stepping into your true potential? I know that when I got your bio, there was a sentence about you finally understanding what that true potential is. And how did this impact the journey as you continued on?
So I really think it's been in this last year and starting my own business, realizing my potential, but also just my alignment with my strengths and how I want to work in the world. Previously, I think I tried to fit that into a box of being a corporate leader, right? I started in a certain job when I was 19 in a big corporation, and that led me to a career path that I kind of, you just get comfortable. You get comfortable with what you know and what you see. So that's another tip. Surround yourself with, get a bigger vision, surround yourself with things that you don't see all the time, get familiar with the other ways in the world to be that will inspire you. because I was kind of stuck. I was kind of stuck in this little world. And so I fit my talents into that and said, well, I know I want to be a leader. I know I want to create things. I know I want to use my creativity. And what I didn't realize was that also is a part of my ability to organize. And organization is something that I think I've kind of run from because it's seen as a little bit type A, a little bit bossy, a little bit of these things that is a little bit maybe even controlling. But the way that I bring my organization into the world is not just in organizing physical spaces or in organizing a document, which I can do very well, but it's also in organizing a vision and organizing a roadmap and seeing in my mind what is going on for a business or a department or a project and seeing, okay, these are the gaps here. Here's how we're going to get to this next big thing that needs to happen for this to be really successful. So I just really have leaned into that and stopped trying to fit myself into that box. And that was part of me creating my own business, was just kind of realizing, even in my dream job, I was feeling stuck. Even in that job of being a VP at a startup, which was very creative, obviously lots of ups and downs there, lots of things to learn, lots of things to do. But in building that business, I also learned I love business. I love talking about building a business. I love learning about building a business. I love all of those aspects. And I really got into that to be a better executive at a startup, and then realized, oh, this just comes really naturally for me and I really enjoy it. So just owning that.
Yeah. How exciting. That is so exciting that you came into your own and you brought those skills forward and you didn't feel stuck in that box. You were able to kind of spread those wings and do things a little differently, expose yourself to different ways and processes that maybe you didn't know before. And yes, startups are an interesting place to be because you do get very creative. You can get very squirrel at times and go, oh my gosh, we should do this or we should do that. And because it is exciting, because you don't have those same boundaries or constructs that you do in a very traditional job. So you can explore different ways of doing things. You can explore a different vision and you work on that collectively, and it's exciting.
Absolutely. Like I said, a lot of highs and a lot of lows, a lot of things that you learn about yourself, similar to being an entrepreneur. And I found as I jump into running my very own business, that it's just more so. It's just more intense, like the peeling back of the layers that you need to do to really become the person that's going to build the business that you want. But again, I think that's applicable to really anybody in any career who wants to get better and achieve whatever goal they have in their career, is doing that personal development work. Because when you see where you want to go, then you can kind of relate your job and again, take that pressure off of those steps that you need to take. And how important is your job? Oh, it's very important, but it's also just a piece of who you want to be and what your life is supposed to look like.
Yeah. And I think as you are younger, a lot of times it can be that you're in this survival mode. I need a job to make money to do A, B, or C. And then as you start to age a little bit, you start to kind of look back and go, not to say, my gosh, where did I go wrong? It's not that. It's how far you've come, how far you come. And I always call that a glance back to see how far you've come. Don't stay back there. See how far you've come and bring some things that you really treasure and that you can apply to the future with you so you can create something even more beautiful for yourself and for others. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about burnout. It's a major, major issue for many professionals. I know you like to work with people from a very holistic perspective. What strategies do you recommend to avoid it? And how does your new masterclass, Find Your Focus, address this?
In all of my coaching, about half of it really is mindset. It's about understanding that you're worth it, understanding that you deserve to not be paid what you're worth and feel like you're stuck. You don't need to live like that. And I know there's certain points in life and certain places that people are where they have a job they don't like, they're doing it anyway. What I really focus on is, though, you control how you feel and how you show up. And you also control what goals you want to have for your future self and how you're going to get there. So despite your circumstances, and I definitely have had privilege in my life. And when I was laid off after 16 years, I had severance pay that was very good. I had that opportunity at least to have some cushion there, have some relief. And my husband had just actually started a better job. So a lot of things that lined up to make that easier for me. And it's definitely harder in different spaces. And I recognize that. But that doesn't mean that you can't still work on your inner peace and your inner goals and show up in a way that is still making life better and easier for you. If you're showing up at a job that you hate and complaining about it and doing it half-assed and just kind of getting through it, it's still not as good for you as just showing up and putting your all in, or at least showing up with a good attitude, seeing what's possible. Maybe there's something you're going to learn from this job that you hate that will really propel you into the next thing. It's not that we all have an opportunity to just say, oh, I'm going to stop this now and do something else and have that complete control over the external things going on in our lives. But it doesn't mean we don't move forward anyway. It doesn't have to stop you.
As we're talking about burnout, what would be some guidance related to how people can feel less burned out? Is it the mindset? Is it their approach? Is it knowing that if we have more emotional agility and understanding our own emotions and being able to identify those so that we can move forward in a way where we're more at peace?
All of that. And I think especially people who are really driven and wanting to do a good job, wanting to go towards a goal, they often do way more than they need to, take on more than they need to, and think that that's how you get better, how you get productive, how you get ahead. And that's not going to help you. Again, it's kind of walking through sand. You're setting yourself up to make this harder. What you want to do is really be intentional about where you spend your time. So I suggest a calendar audit. I know it's very time consuming, but it's super helpful to see where you actually spend your time. A lot of time we don't even realize we're spending our time on this little stuff or stuff that we don't really need to do today, stuff that other people could help us with. Delegating doesn't just mean that you have a team that you can delegate to. Delegating means, can you hire a personal assistant for 2 hours a month even to help you with some stuff? Can you ask your sister-in-law to do something? Can you ask your kids to do some more things? I'm a mom of teenagers. I'm going through that like, hey, my kids are teenagers. They can also do these things that I have on my plate. And even household stuff, even personal stuff will bog you down. So you want to make sure to be thoughtful about all the things in your life and what you're taking on. Also say no to things. And that's another part of that mindset and that worthiness, that self-work that we need to do is we don't need to take everything on. We don't need to be everybody else's hero. We need to do the things that really matter, that are in alignment with our values, that are in alignment with where we want to go. And so doing a really intentional audit of your time and where you're spending it and where you want to be spending it, and whittling away all of those things that aren't really going to get you closer to that goal. I think the other thing that is obvious and easy to talk about and people know but don't put into practice very often is focusing on one thing at a time. And it's really difficult. Things are going to come up, especially if you're a business owner, right? You're wearing all the hats when you first start out. You have to. But I literally talk to people in my masterclass about creating your hats, right? And then focusing on the two that are really the most meaningful for your business and making sure you put those on every day for a very focused task, a very focused work session that you can get something done that will move you towards those goals. And this could be done whether you're an entrepreneur or you have a career somewhere, you're working for somebody. I did this when I transitioned into energy, and really this is where I came up with this concept of, okay, I needed to put my sales hat on every day because I needed to grow my program. That was a huge part of my goal there, was growing that program that I was managing. If I didn't, honestly, they said it will go away. This program that I thought was very important to clean energy in California would go away. So I was very driven to really increase the amount, and I had to put my sales hat on. I also had to put on my systems hat and look at what are our systems doing and how can that really automate this process and make it easier for our customers to participate and feel good about what they're doing. So how do I support customers with systems? So those were my two hats as an example. I think getting really clear on that, and also just recognizing we do wear all those hats and kind of picturing that. You can picture it however you want. But for me, having all these hats like lined up and identified, it really shows me, oh, there's a lot to do. But also then I can be more intentional when I vision that and see, okay, which hat am I going to pick up?
Yeah, great guidance. We have talked about so much here, such as mindset, goals, really looking at how you're auditing your time and how you're spending your time, focusing on one thing at a time, how you're walking your process, what your process looks like. There's so much here. But as we come to the close of the interview, my last question for you, Nicolette, is can you give the listeners one tip about finding focus to step into their true potential?
Yeah, I think honestly that the hardest part is the thing that you need to do is sit down with yourself, get quiet and journal, brainstorm what your life could look like. Get really crazy big with it. Really envision like, I could do this. Get outside of the box. Like I said, go find some inspiration if you need to. Go look at what other people are doing in a space that interests you and just journal all that out. That it's such a huge step to overcoming the things that are holding ourselves back, right? The things that we do that hold ourselves back is doing this exercise and realizing what you want for your life. Got one precious life. What are you going to do with it? That it's possible, right? We have some goals that we need to set. Maybe you need to figure out what those goals are, but writing all this down and taking that time to be quiet with yourself and really listen to who you are and what you want is going to drive your inspiration. It's going to drive the next goals that you set and make it that much easier for you to reach them.
Thank you so much, Nicolette, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It has been wonderful. You can follow Nicolette Sowa on Facebook at Next Level Business Strategy, on Instagram at Next Level Nicolette, and at nextlevelnicolette.com.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women, and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.